Wealth is not created by luck or intelligence alone. It is the predictable output of a system, a machine driven by technology, incentives, capital, and human behavior moving through repeating cycles. When a new lever enters that machine, outcomes change quickly and unevenly. Artificial intelligence is such a lever. History shows that during moments like this, effort matters. Less than positioning and ownership matters more than labor. Those who understand the cause affect relationships early, adapt, and compound. Those who delay experience pain and confusion. The next few years represent a compressed phase in a much larger economic cycle. The question is not whether this change will happen. The question is how I know if my understanding of this system is correct. To understand what is happening now, we need to step back and observe the system as a whole. Every economy is a machine. It takes inputs like labor, capital, and technology, and it produces outputs like goods, services, income, and wealth. For decades, this machine was relatively stable. Human labor was a critical input. If you worked harder, learned more skills, and moved up the hierarchy, you were likely to be rewarded with higher income and eventually ownership. That cause-effect relationship trained an entire generation to believe effort reliably led to prosperity. Artificial intelligence changes that relationship. It does not break the machine, it rewires it. When a technology dramatically lowers the cost of thinking, decision-making, and execution, the role of human labor inside the system changes. If a machine can perform cognitive work faster, cheaper, and with fewer errors than humans, then labor loses its pricing power. This is not ideology. It is mechanics. History helps us see this clearly. During past technological shifts, the same pattern repeated. When machines replaced physical labor during the Industrial Revolution, the value of raw muscle collapsed. Those who owned factories and capital benefited disproportionately. Workers eventually adapted, but only after a painful transition. The same cause-effect logic now applies to cognitive labor. AI is doing to white-collar work what industrial machinery did to physical work. Here is the key principle. When productivity increases faster than the need for human input, the surplus does not automatically flow to workers. It flows to ownership. This is why I say AI does not eliminate wealth. It amplifies it. If you own assets that benefit from increased productivity, AI becomes a lever. If you rely on wages, AI becomes competition. The system rewards leverage, not effort. You can already see this happening. A smaller number of people can now produce the output of entire teams. Companies do not need to scale headcount to scale results. When that happens, bargaining power shifts. Employers no longer need to pay more to attract talent. They need fewer people who can control more leverage. This leads to concentration, not because of malice, but because of math. At this stage, it is important to practice thoughtful disagreement with myself. How do I know this is not just another technology panic? The answer lies in speed and scope. AI adoption is happening faster than any previous general-purpose technology. It affects nearly all cognitive tasks simultaneously. That compresses the adjustment period. Systems under rapid change create pain because most people adapt based on old rules. Pain is information. When old cause-effect relationships stop working, discomfort increases. The correct response is not denial or fear. It is reflection. If pain plus reflection equals progress, then this moment represents a powerful learning opportunity. The real risk is not AI itself. The risk is continuing to make decisions as if the machine has not changed. So the first step is clarity. See the system as it is, not as you wish it to be. Ask yourself where value is created, where leverage sits, and how ownership captures outcomes. Only after you understand the machine can you decide how to position yourself within it. Once you see the machine clearly, the next step is to identify the forces moving it. Systems do not change randomly. They evolve when multiple cause-effect relationships begin reinforcing one another. Right now, several forces are aligning in the same direction, and together they explain why we are moving toward a winner-take-most outcome. The first force is scale without labor. If a technology allows output to grow without a proportional increase in people, then returns concentrate naturally. AI allows a small number of individuals or firms to control enormous productive capacity. If one person can now produce the work of 20, then ownership of that system becomes the dominant source of value. Labor becomes an input with diminishing leverage. When this happens, income distribution stretches not because of unfairness, but because of arithmetic. The second force is the privatization of growth. Historically, many of the highest growth phases of companies happened in public markets where average investors could participate early. That cycle has shifted. Today, much of the compounding occurs in private systems funded by venture capital and private equity. By the time assets reach public markets, much of the upside has already been captured. If access to early ownership narrows, then wealth naturally concentrates among those already inside the system. The third force is constrained access to foundational assets. Housing is a clear example. When the cost of a core asset rises faster than income, it stops being a wealth-building tool and becomes a barrier. In previous cycles, real estate allowed average participants to convert income into leverage. When that door closes, fewer people can compound and the gap widens. This is not a moral judgment. It is a mechanical outcome of supply, demand, and capital flows. The fourth force is the AI adoption gap. In every technological cycle, those who learn to use new tools early gain an outsized advantage. AI dramatically increases individual leverage. If one person can multiply their output by 2 or 5 times, then opportunities and income follow. If another person chooses not to adapt, they are not standing still. They are falling behind. The system rewards those who align with its new rules. Together, these forces create a reinforcing loop. Scale concentrates returns. Early ownership captures growth. Barriers limit entry. Adoption gaps widen outcomes. This is how winner-take-most systems form. History shows this pattern clearly in prior technological and financial cycles. The difference now is speed. The faster the cycle turns, the less time people have to adapt. At this point, I challenge my own thinking again. How do I know these forces will continue? The answer lies in incentives. Companies are rewarded for efficiency. Capital flows toward higher returns. Individuals respond to tools that increase leverage. None of these incentives are reversing. Until they do, the system will continue moving in this direction. This creates discomfort because old beliefs stop working. Pain emerges when expectations collide with reality. That pain is useful if it leads to reflection. If you observe these forces without judgment, you can begin to adjust your position. The goal is not certainty. The goal is probability. Understand the system, weigh the evidence, and decide how to respond. The critical question to ask yourself is simple. Given how this machine is evolving, where am I exposed and where do I have leverage? Once you understand the forces shaping the system, the next step is to identify the primary lever that determines outcomes. In this phase of the cycle, that lever is ownership. This is not a philosophical preference. It is a mechanical reality. In any system where productivity increases faster than labor participation, returns flow to whatever controls the productive assets. Ownership means having a claim on the outputs of the machine rather than being paid a fixed input. When AI increases output while reducing the need for human intervention, the value of fixed compensation declines relative to variable upside. This is why ownership becomes the dominant determinant of long-term wealth. It allows you to benefit from the system improving without requiring you to work more hours. History reinforces this principle repeatedly. During the Industrial Revolution, factory owners accumulated wealth faster than skilled craftsmen. During the rise of corporations, shareholders benefited more than employees. During financialization, asset holders outpaced wage earners. The pattern is consistent across cycles. When leverage increases, those who control it capture the surplus. AI accelerates this dynamic because it compresses time. It allows systems to scale with minimal marginal cost. When marginal cost approaches zero, competition intensifies and profits concentrate among the most efficient operators. In such environments, ownership does not just generate returns. It protects relevance. If you own a productive asset, you participate regardless of how labor markets evolve. This does not mean everyone needs to own a large company. Ownership exists on a spectrum. It includes equity in businesses, financial assets, real assets, intellectual property, and systems that produce value independent of your time. The key distinction is whether your income stops when you stop working. If it does, you are exposed to the changing rules of the labor market. If it does not, you are aligned with the system. At this point, it is important to apply believability weighting. Ask whose outcomes support these claims. Those who accumulated assets early in prior cycles gained optionality and resilience. Those who relied exclusively on wages experienced volatility. This is observable data, not theory. Now, I challenge this conclusion. How do I know ownership will remain the primary lever? The answer lies in incentives and constraints. Capital seeks efficiency. Technology rewards scale. Policy tends to lag innovation. None of these forces currently favor labor over ownership. Until those incentives reverse, the probability-weighted outcome remains the same. This realization can be uncomfortable because it reveals exposure. Pain arises when we see a mismatch between where we are positioned and how the system works. That pain is useful if it leads to reflection. Reflection allows adjustment. Adjustment creates progress. This is the evolutionary loop. The practical implication is not reckless risk-taking. It is intentional positioning. Convert some portion of effort into claims on productive systems. Use AI not just to work faster, but to build leverage. Ask continually how value is created and who controls it. Systems reward those who align with their mechanics. The final question in this section is simple. If AI is accelerating the machine and ownership controls the outputs, where exactly do I stand relative to that lever? To understand why so many people feel stuck despite working harder, we need to examine a critical breakdown inside the machine. This breakdown is what I call the decoupling between labor and income. For much of the last century, there was a relatively stable cause-effect relationship. If you increased your productivity, your compensation tended to rise over time. This belief became deeply embedded in education, career planning, and social expectations. That relationship has been weakening for decades. Productivity continued to rise while wages lagged behind. The surplus created by higher output did not disappear. It flowed elsewhere. It flowed to corporate profits, asset prices, and those with ownership stakes. This was already happening before AI. Artificial intelligence now accelerates the same mechanism. The reason is structural. When labor can be substituted or augmented easily, it loses bargaining power. AI allows firms to scale output without scaling people. If results can increase without proportional hiring, then employers have less incentive to compete for workers. Income growth slows even as productivity explodes. This creates confusion because people follow the old rules and get new outcomes. AI intensifies this decoupling because it operates across cognitive tasks simultaneously. Entry-level work management analysis, writing, coding, and decision support are all affected at once. This reduces the training pipeline that historically allowed workers to move up the value chain. When fewer people are needed at the bottom, fewer people can advance to the top. The ladder narrows. From a system perspective, this is not a failure. It is an adaptation. The machine is optimizing for efficiency. Efficiency reduces costs. Reduced costs increase competitiveness. Competitiveness rewards scale. Scale rewards ownership. The system is doing exactly what it is designed to do. The discomfort comes from misaligned expectations, not malfunction. This is where pain enters the process. People feel pressure, insecurity, and frustration because effort no longer produces the outcomes it once did. That pain is data. It signals that the underlying cause-effect relationships have changed. Ignoring that signal leads to stagnation. Reflecting on it leads to adaptation. The dangerous response is to double down on outdated assumptions. Working longer hours, chasing promotions, and waiting for affordability to return assumes the old machine will restart. History suggests that once systems evolve, they rarely revert. They stabilize at a new equilibrium. The productive response is to reevaluate positioning. If income from labor is less reliable, then dependency on it increases risk. If ownership captures surplus, then lacking ownership increases vulnerability. This does not mean abandoning work. It means redefining its purpose. Labor becomes a tool to acquire leverage rather than an end in itself. At this point, I ask myself a difficult question. How do I know this decoupling will persist? The answer again lies in incentives. Firms are rewarded for automation. Consumers reward lower prices. Capital rewards scalability. These forces reinforce one another. Until incentives change, the decoupling remains the base case. Progress begins when pain leads to reflection. Reflection clarifies the system. Clarity enables adjustment. Adjustment restores forward motion. This is how systems evolve and how individuals evolve within them. The essential question for this phase is straightforward. If labor and income are no longer tightly linked, what role should labor play in my strategy going forward? At this stage, it is reasonable to ask whether this shift represents a breakdown or a progression. History suggests it is neither purely destructive nor purely beneficial. It is evolutionary. Large systems periodically go through phases where old structures dissolve and new ones emerge. These transitions feel chaotic to participants because cause-effect relationships change faster than beliefs. Every major technological leap followed a similar pattern. Productivity surged. Certain skills lost value. Entire professions disappeared. At the same time, new forms of value creation emerged that were difficult to imagine beforehand. During the agricultural era, land was the primary lever. During industrialization, capital and machinery took that role. In the information age, networks and data became dominant. AI represents the next phase of that cycle. The key insight is that technology does not eliminate work. It changes what work is valuable. The question is not whether new opportunities will exist. The question is who will be positioned to capture them. In previous cycles, those who adapted their skills and aligned with new leverage points advanced. Those who resisted change experienced prolonged pain. AI feels different because of its breadth. It touches nearly every cognitive task at once. This compresses the adjustment period. In past cycles, people had decades to adapt. Now, adaptation is required within years. This speed amplifies fear, but fear is not evidence. The system is not collapsing. It is reorganizing. From a systems perspective, AI dramatically lowers the cost of producing ideas, analysis, and execution. When costs fall, abundance increases. Abundance tends to reduce prices and expand access over time. This has been true for food, transportation, energy, and information. The same logic applies here. The long-term outcome is likely higher baseline living standards. The short-term outcome is disruption. This creates a distributional challenge. During transitions, value accrues unevenly. Early adopters capture outsized gains. Late adopters experience displacement. Eventually, diffusion spreads benefits more broadly. This is the repeating rhythm of the big cycle. The pain is real, but it is also transitional. To evaluate this rationally, we must apply believability weighting again. Which perspective aligns with historical evidence? The view that technology permanently destroys opportunity has repeatedly been wrong. The view that technology reshapes opportunity and rewards adaptation has repeatedly been right. That does not guarantee smooth outcomes, but it informs probabilities. The danger lies in passivity. Waiting for clarity often means missing the phase where leverage is cheapest. Early in cycles, experimentation is rewarded. Later, conformity is required. AI adoption follows this same pattern. Early users gain flexibility and optionality. Late users face standardized expectations and lower relative returns. This brings us back to the formula. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Discomfort signals change. Reflection produces insight. Insight enables evolution. Avoiding pain delays learning. Embracing reflection accelerates adaptation. The appropriate response is not panic or blind optimism. It is thoughtful positioning. Accept uncertainty. Place small, intelligent bets. Learn continuously. Use tools that increase leverage. Build optionality rather than rigid plans. The essential question to ask here is not whether AI will be good or bad. It is whether I am evolving at least as fast as the system around me. Once you understand the system, the forces and the levers, the final step is deciding how to act under uncertainty. No one can predict outcomes with precision. The goal is not certainty. The goal is to position yourself so the probabilities work in your favor. This requires thinking in terms of systems rather than individual decisions. The first action is to build adaptability. In fast-changing systems, fixed identities break. Skills that compound across environments matter more than narrow specialization. Learning how to work with AI is not optional. It is a form of leverage. If a tool can multiply your output, then ignoring it reduces your relative position. The objective is not mastery. It is fluency. Fluency allows you to move as the system evolves. The second action is to diversify income streams. Systems under transition are volatile. Relying on a single source of income increases fragility. Small experiments in micro-entrepreneurship, investment, or scalable projects increase optionality. Most will fail. A few will work. That is acceptable. Evolution favors portfolios, not bets. The third action is to convert income into ownership consistently. Timing is unreliable. Consistency compounds. Allocate a portion of effort toward acquiring assets that benefit from productivity gains. This can take many forms: public markets, private projects, real assets, or intellectual property. The specific vehicle matters less than the principle. Ownership aligns you with the machine rather than against it. The fourth action is to reduce structural fragility. High fixed expenses and high debt reduce freedom of movement. In unstable periods, flexibility has value. Lowering obligations increases your ability to adapt. This is not about austerity. It is about resilience. Systems reward those who can survive volatility long enough to benefit from recovery. The fifth action is to protect attention. In environments saturated with information, distraction becomes a tax. The ability to focus deeply on complex problems is an increasingly rare advantage. This is a human differentiator that technology has not eliminated. Combining focus with leverage produces asymmetric outcomes. Throughout this process, radical transparency with yourself is essential. Regularly ask, how do I know this is working? What evidence would change my mind? Am I weighting my own beliefs more heavily than reality? Thoughtful disagreement begins internally. This approach embodies the evolutionary formula. Pain reveals misalignment. Reflection clarifies cause and effect. Adjustments improve fit with the system. Progress follows. Avoiding pain delays learning. Embracing reflection accelerates adaptation. The larger perspective is this: AI does not remove opportunity. It redistributes it according to new rules. Those rules reward leverage, adaptability, and ownership. The earlier you align, the more time compounding works in your favor. The later you wait, the more expensive adaptation becomes. This is not a countdown to failure. It is a window for positioning. Systems always move forward. Individuals can move with them or resist them. The choice is not moral. It is mechanical.